God is the God of promises and of miracles. In Genesis 22, he asked Abraham to bring his miracle son, Isaac, up to Mount Moriah to make a sacrifice. The father, Isaac said, "Where is the lamb of the sacrifice?" And Abraham said, "God will provide for himself the lamb." This is Mount Moriah today, now called the Temple Mount, considered the Holy of Holies by the Jews. But the Temple Mount is also a Muslim holy place. It is believed Muhammad ascended to heaven here. The Muslims built this mosque in 685 AD to outshine the nearby Christian church of the Holy Sepulchre, which was built by Emperor Constantine. The tiles around the dome contain inscriptions from the Quran. This is sacred ground for the Muslims, and these are the arches of judgment for Islam. We may look at them and say, "Open the gates of the temple, let the light of Christ in." In the source, James Michener related that God told the early Hebrews to worship him alone. Respect the gods of the place, but do not worship them. Abraham's promised son, Isaac, had twins, Esau and Jacob. The 12 sons of Jacob became the heads of 12 tribes. Jacob's second wife, Rachel, was buried on the way to Bethlehem. Genesis 35:20 says, "Jacob set up a pillar over her grave. It is there to this day, but is now walled off, and we can't visit it." Israel has been at the confluence of violence through all of history, and probably originated in Africa at least 2 million years ago. James Michener said that man wandered into Israel rather late. Since the area is a natural highway, it has always been a focus of forces. Even in geology, a fracture point where continents meet and twist with many earthquakes and violent storms. A famine brought Jacob's 12 sons together in Egypt. 435 years later, years of oppression and slavery, Moses was raised up to say to the Pharaoh, "Let my people go." Go they did, and wandered 40 years in the wilderness south and east of the Dead Sea. After the grumbling generation and the disobedient Moses were dead, God allowed them into the promised land through Jericho. Jericho was told to take down the walls and conquer the city. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down.
The Lord spoke to Joshua, "Moses, my servant, is dead. Therefore the time has come for you to lead these people, the Israelites, across the Jordan River into the land I am giving them. I promise you what I promised Moses. Wherever you set foot, you will be on land I have given you, from the Negev wilderness in the south to the Lebanon mountains in the north, from the Euphrates River in the east to the Mediterranean Sea in the west, including all the land of the Hittites. No one will be able to stand against you as long as you live, for I will be with you as I was with Moses. I will not fail you or abandon you." Joshua 1:2-5.
Some of the great stories of the Old Testament occurred during the time of the Judges. One of the judges was Samson, the statue that was in the mall near our hotel. And it shows Delilah cutting his hair while he slept, as he had whispered to her that his strength was in his hair. It went downhill from there for Samson. But in his final moments was glory. God gave him his strength back, and he brought down the building full of 3,000 of the Israelites' enemies, the Philistines. It is noteworthy, by the way, that Philistine and Palestinian are the same root and referring to the same people. And remember, Jesus was a Palestinian. Well, our Sunday school children know what soon happened. The discontented Israelites said that they wanted a king and wanted to be like the nations around them. It wasn't enough to have God on their side. So King Saul was anointed king of Israel. After his reign, after many battles, Saul and his son Jonathan were slain on Mount Gilboa, and their bodies were taken to this nearby city of Bethshean, which we visited. According to 1 Samuel 31:10, it's gruesome, but it says, the Philistines put his weapons in the temple of Ashtaroth, a pagan god, and they fastened his body to the wall of Bethshean. The city has been well excavated. There's an amphitheater, and there are perfect acoustics in that place. You can whisper at the bottom and be heard at the top. There is a vomitorium. Yes, that's what it's called. It's a hallway that vomits the crowds out of the amphitheater. There's a public latrine. Very carefully how it operates. And it has no discrimination between men and women. And there's a palace, and there are columns in the distance, now close up, that indicate the walkway of the palace. By this time, David had already been anointed by Samuel to be king of Israel. David was the greatest king in Israel, a man after God's own heart.
Out of the stump of David's family will grow a shoot, yes, a new branch bearing fruit from the old root. In that day, the heir of David's throne will be a banner of salvation to all the world. The nations will rally to him, and the land where he lives will be a glorious place. Isaiah 11:1.
David was born in Bethlehem, the seventh son of Jesse. Recently, Pope Benedict gave a gift to the city of Bethlehem, an ironwork tree showing David as a shepherd, his father and brothers, the subsequent kings of Israel and Judea, and finally King Jesus at the top of the tree, the culmination of the fulfillment of God's promise. David did not have an easy time on his way to taking over the throne of Israel. In En-Gedi, near Qumran, he hid in a cave like this one. It's not really far from Bethlehem, and he may have tended sheep here as a boy. He knew all the caves and hiding places.
Have mercy on me, O God, have mercy. I look to you for protection. I will hide beneath the shadow of your wings until the danger passes by. I cry out to God Most High, to God who will fulfill his purpose for me. He will send help from heaven to rescue me, disgracing those who hound me. My God will send forth his unfailing love and faithfulness. I am surrounded by fierce lions who greedily devour human prey, whose teeth pierce like spears and arrows, and whose tongues cut like swords. Be exalted, O God, above the highest heavens. May your glory shine over all the earth. Psalm 57, 1-5.
At your lowest point, when you feel the least like doing It is believed he was crowned on the same rock below the dome of the rock that we saw earlier, and where Abraham supposedly offered up his son Isaac, or was going to. The city of David, or the stronghold of Zion, is southeast of the old city of Jerusalem. The main source of water was the Gihon spring, which fed the pool of Siloam, which was at the city of David. And we'll come back to that. The Ark of the Covenant was brought to Jerusalem with David and all the house of Israel, dancing before the Lord with shouting and the sound of the trumpet, according to 2 Samuel 15. David asked God if he should not build a house for the ark, but God told him it is his son Solomon who would build a temple for the ark. This, of course, is a statue of the ark in the white. And we visited a model of the old city of Jerusalem, and a model of the temple shows here. This Solomon did build a temple like this, which was a jewel for all of Israel. It contained the Holy of Holies, and it became the focus of yearly journeys to Jerusalem from all over Israel and all other lands around there. Let's read together this song. I was glad when they said to me, "Let us go to the house of the Lord." And now here we are, standing inside your gates, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem is a well-built city. Its seamless walls cannot be breached. All the tribes of Israel, the Lord's people, make their pilgrimage here. They come to give thanks to the name of the Lord, as the law requires of Israel. Here stand thrones where judgment is given, the thrones of the dynasty of David. Pray for peace in Jerusalem. May all who love the city prosper. O Jerusalem, may there be peace in your walls and prosperity in your houses. For the sake of my family and friends, I will say, may you have peace. For the sake of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek what is best for you, O Jerusalem.
Today, only the western wall remains of the Second Temple. Faithful Jews come to pray at the wall, men on the left, women on the right. Nearby in the Muslim section of Jerusalem, one has to get a cup of coffee to get this version of Starbucks. Today, the faithful Jews come to pray at the wall, and the fortunate few 13-year-olds have their bar mitzvahs there. It's a festive occasion. Beneath the western wall, tunnels have recently been excavated. We were privileged to go in them. This shows a single stone, 40 feet long, 13 feet by 13 feet. Can you imagine in those days how they tried to move that, or how long it had taken, upon which the temple was built. As we walked through the tunnel, we were actually on a street in Jerusalem that Jesus walked. Like the tells, Jerusalem was also built upon rubble of preceding generations. The Jerusalem of Jesus is really way below where it is now. After King Solomon, Israel was the Holy Land went downhill, a divided kingdom with many wicked rulers. Most of all, probably was King Ahab and his wife Jezebel. They more than met their match, however, with the prophet Elijah. First Kings tell vivid accounts of Elijah's feats, including slaughtering the prophets of Baal, having a contest on Mount Carmel.
So Ahab summoned all the people of Israel and the prophets to Mount Carmel. Then Elijah stood in front of them and said, "How much longer will you waver, hobbling between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, then follow him." But 1 Kings, chapter 18, verses 20, 21, 26, and 40.
Mount Carmel, where this took place, towers over the plain of Armageddon. At Mount Carmel, Jill Briscoe gave a stirring sermon on the power of prayer like Elijah demonstrated. Let me say as a side note that the Briscoes, Jill and Stuart Briscoe, were the leaders of our group of 100. They are quite well known for their radio and television ministry, and in addition they started a large church outside of Milwaukee called Elmbrook. They were delightful as leaders and would preach every once in a while. Jill was also a poet, so she shared some of her beautiful poetry. But here she's telling us about when she had her own time of needing to know something beyond herself about prayer. And she went to this passage in this area in the Old Testament where Elijah prayed and miraculous things happened. Another prophet was Isaiah. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, discovered by a shepherd boy in 1947, the words of Isaiah are recorded and they're unchanged from what had been passed down over the centuries and the millennia. The scrolls were hidden in caves by a community believed to be the Essenes, living there from 150 BC until about 68 AD. So we saw excavations of how they lived. They were very communal, in fact. The Dead Sea Scrolls continue to be kept in Jerusalem and studied in the Shrine of the Book in Jerusalem. And I guess just lately there have been some of these scrolls that are here in this state or are touring someplace. But the actual Shrine of the Book Museum is built to resemble the lid of the jars in which the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered. We come to intertestamental times between Malachi and Matthew. And I happened to pick up the Lutheran Digest from the table out there, and there's a great story in there. I've got the last copy, but I'll leave it there. The missing 300 years, and that's what I'm talking about when I say intertestamental times, between Joel, which is considered to be the last Old Testament book, and the books of the Gospel, Matthew. So if you have a chance to read this, it's very interesting. This is Caesarea Philippi, where the pagan god Pan was worshipped for generations. And you see a little arch there. That's where the figure, the statue of the god Pan was. Many people came to worship this pagan god. This is also the site of the Tel Dan. Remember, Tel is a mound that was excavated. Here, waters come together to form the Jordan River. And we enjoyed watching these schoolgirls romp around in the shallow water of the Jordan. And we also enjoyed watching the boys watching the girls. This is Masada, the story of Masada, which is a little way south of the Dead Sea. Masada means stronghold, and it starts with Herod the Great. Now, we've got a number of Herods in the Bible and in history, and this is the one that lived from 37 BC until 4 AD, so that would have been the Herod of the time of the birth of Christ. Herod constructed a wall 18 feet high around the top of the mountain. From Masada, the top, you can see the snake path leading up. That's the snake path, and it's called that because it snakes. We took a cable car. Thank goodness. The Dead Sea is in the distance, and after Jerusalem fell in 70 AD, the Jewish zealots fled to Masada, thinking they would be safe there. They would be oppressed by the Romans still. They had a final stand against the Romans. 960 people, according to the historian Josephus, took their own lives at Masada, choosing death over slavery to Rome. So here's the ramp that the Romans built and the stones that the zealots used to try to ward them off. Herod's palace was built and used by him only once or twice.